Oh, good morning, everybody. Thanks for being here. We're really excited about sharing RedTeam with you today. We're going to do a very brief, very quick overview demo. We're not going to get into a lot of detail, but I want to highlight some key things that really make RedTeam different in the market.
So when we look at RedTeam, what's made RedTeam, different in the marketplace is really who we are. We're born out of a construction company. Mike is a general contractor himself, so obviously being able to build it from actual need personally. Our clients typically are, commercial construction contractors that looking to boost our productivity and really manage, manual workflows, put them into a centralized platform, make sure the information can be shared across the entire team on the project. What we are really is, again, construction professionals that got into the software business. We're not software guys that got into construction and telling how construction business should work. So we have a lot of deep experience when we help our clients to make sure to show them how can we get the best possible outcome for their business and streamlining workflows throughout the organization. What is unique about RedTeam is a lot of softwares are either built around accounting or design or field management. RedTeam is actually built around contract. For us, contract is at the heart of every project. So we really look at how we manage everything around the contract is done within RedTeam. Everything from the pre-construction, even business development, scheduling, field management through our mobile app, and even managing some of the construction financials throughout the project. The platform is a very broad platform. Again, everything from business development, pre-con, project management, construction financials, and closeout. You will see when you see the application work that it's very easy to use for you. And a lot of our clients that use RedTeam will use some or all of the software. It really varies. So the software is very flexible in giving you the ability to choose what components of the software you may use for your organization. Really what we look at is the primary reason to have a web-based production software like RedTeam for your project management is connecting the field to the office, making sure that teams can collaborate in real time, sharing documentation, uploading photos, monitor all the operational and the financial performance of the project in real time. And the in real time is critical because anything that changes needs to be made visible to the team in the field immediately. Or if something is seen from the field, you have to be able to share it with the office in real time as well. So what we do is we provide the field with real-time access to all the information of the project. The team, the RFIs, you can create punch lists, daily reports can be built on the fly. We even support time card entries as well as expense report management. So it's a very broad platform from that perspective. When we look at construction software from a project management perspective, what's really important is being able to make it easy for the team to capture information from the field so it is visible. The software is only as good as the information that comes into the software to help manage the project successfully. And so we've been very focused on making that easy for the team. Our mobile application, again, very easy to use. You can access the project information. Punch list can be accessed from the subcontractor or the general contractor. So again, we've made it very intuitive, and so we have very rapid adoption from the field in particular. Obviously, when it comes to the office side of it, there's a lot of moving parts on the construction project. Everything from change order management, and Mike will show you how the change management is done in RedTeam. Managing vendor invoices that come in, so the project manager can review an invoice against the vendor schedule of value so they can make sure that all of that is properly tracked. And obviously generate real-time reports for the owner, manage all the submittal, have a complete submittal workflow, and produce very detailed financial performance overviews for the project. We produce everything all the way to a live work in progress report for our clients. What you will find also is within RedTeam, throughout the application, you will see our real-time collaborative console. This particular element of RedTeam is critical. While we think email is really valuable from the perspective of notifying people, we find that email is also a huge liability. When there's a problem down the road, having to rebuild the timeline of a project can be a very tedious process and very expensive process. So what we have built is this collaborative console that lives alongside every single document you share in RedTeam. And that collaborative console is used so every person you invite to collaborate is able to enter information, respond, enter comments, share documents. And a collaborator does not have to log into RedTeam. They just have to be invited by the contractor onto that document. So it's a very, very dynamic. It can be also made company confidential. You can record every phone call if you want to. For example, have a conversation with an owner about a change order or about an RFI, and they're giving some context to it. So I might enter the content of that phone conversation on that particular line of conversation on the right-hand side of the document. And that dialogue lives alongside the document for the life of the project. So it's really, really valuable to keep the context of everything that happens. When you look at cost control, RedTeam is really focused on making it easy to gain visibility for the entire team. So that I'm the project manager or a superintendent, I can have access to a lot of the elements of the project that you need to see. Now, RedTeam is role-based, so every user will have its unique set of access to information that you choose. So you may decide that a PM can only approve up to a certain dollar amount on an invoice, can only see certain things in the project, so you can really help control who sees what when within the project itself. We have a lot of very detailed financial overviews. For example, this report is a snapshot of a project. It produces information in real time. You can actually take a snapshot of that and go back and look at them over time. But if you look at the details of it, it will show the details of the contract that you have with all the authorized change orders, the modified contract value with how many days of impact there were. You can see potential scope change that may exist on that project. And then right here below, I have a module that gives me my estimate at complete to complete breakdown. So I've got my budget right here, my actuals, which would be all the money I've allowed to disperse, my open items, which would be all the commitments that I have let, my estimate cost to complete, those are things I have not bought yet, or could be in my contingency fund. And then this produces my estimate at complete against, and then calculates a variance against my initial budget. So I see how I'm doing on this project. Not only that, but this can also help you manage working capital per project. So I can see here in real time what is my total revenue, and RedTeam works based on either a revenue recognition on cash basis. You get to choose that, and I can calculate also how much I have billed, so I'm overbilled on this particular project, how much money I've received to date, so I know how much I am owed. I can see what's been paid to date and what is payable, so I can see why I have either so much or so little money in my bank account. A very easy snapshot to see how your project is performing. What we hear from our users at RedTeam is a lot of gains in terms of making the financial performance of each project visible to the entire team, being able to manage communication with all the project participants, either that you're a subcontractor, an owner, an architect, whoever may need to participate on the project. It's very easy for that to get access to that information. Obviously, we talked about control over process of change orders, and then the invoice approval process. We do have integration partners, companies like PlanGrid, Zealing, DocuSign, so to make it easier to have other workflows within the project, and we'll touch on that as we show you the product working. What our clients say about RedTeam, in general, it's making it easier for them to run their business day to day. Having all the information in one single environment, organized very logically. So, you get away from having all these file folders and search through information. Also, our product is very cost effective. We've been very focused on providing the highest possible value to our clients. And you will find that RedTeam provides extraordinary value for its clients. And also, everything is updated in real time, right? Because we're a web-based software, so it's a SaaS software, everything is in the cloud. So that I'm on my mobile device, I'm at home or at my office, I have access to that same information in real time. Now, one thing that's exciting about RedTeam is we are announcing this month an integration to Sage, Sage 100 for contractors and Sage 300 construction real estate. And RedTeam will be able to actually create projects in Sage, push a lot of the information necessary in Sage to have a project fully organized, and then share information back and forth about vendor invoices that have been approved, book them as accounts payable, the customer billing, receiving receipts, and payment receipts as well. We will enter all the new customers, vendors, projects, all the cost goes into Sage. Our goal is to eliminate a lot of that duplicate data entry in both systems. Now, our pricing model, we have two approaches to pricing, depending on what your needs are. First thing you need to know is it's unlimited data. So as much information as you need to store in the software, we can support that. We have an enterprise pricing, which will be based on concurrent sessions. And also we offer named users. If you don't want to have the risk of a person not being able to log in, maybe a senior executive in the company, and you want to make sure that they can log in at any time, then you can offer a named user. We also offer unlimited mobile access options available. Our enterprise unlimited pricing model is based on the annual construction volume. It's a much simpler model, unlimited projects, unlimited users, unlimited data. So anything you need to do inside the software, you can do directly here. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to pass this on to Mike, so Mike can show you a little bit more about how the software functions for you. So let me switch over to the software. And right now you can see the dashboard of RedTeam.
So thanks, Fred. Tim mentioned earlier about my experience in construction, and so I think what that illustrates is the fact that RedTeam is a product that was born from need. And, the story of building software to run a business is not an unusual one, but in our case, it's pretty distinctive. There are very unique attributes of construction project management and construction accounting, and I think that, my hands-on experience as a general contractor has manifested in a product that is, I think, pretty unique in the industry. One of the key takeaways that we often hear is that people recognize almost immediately that this is software that was built by a contractor because the information is laid out the way contractors view the world. So we're logged into the application right now. This is live. You can see we've got a number of menu options down the left side. We're not going to go into detail on a lot of these things, but what I do like to do is go into a little bit of detail on some key functions within the application, just to give you a sense of how RedTeam works. On the left side, you see we've got a place for employees. Employees, do things like maintain their profile, enter time, and enter expenses. Key transactions that definitely create workflow throughout the organization. We've got a place for equipment. This would be company-owned equipment that is in the custody of employees. And so this would be not necessarily heavy equipment, but this is anything the company owns that it's keeping track of. It could be cell phones, it could be trucks, anything you've got. Companies covers the businesses that you do business with. So vendors are people you pay, customers are people who pay you. Third parties are organizations that are involved in projects that are not necessarily contractually bound to your firm. This would include, things like architects, bank inspectors, all of the individuals that make up and comprise a complete project team. Under contacts is pretty self-explanatory. Opportunities is a basic CRM functionality. This is designed for contractors, and so oftentimes, as a contractor manages its relationships in the world, there's a lot of information about what may be coming down the pipeline long before you have plans and specs. And so RedTeam enables you to keep track of key individuals in the marketplace that you want to track interactions so that you can be best positioned to win new work as it comes up. Once you have a set of plans and specifications, of course, we promote that to being what we call a project. And so as I've navigated into the main project menu in RedTeam, you see I've got a number of columns that I can actually customize. One of the unique aspects of RedTeam, as Fred mentioned, is that it's role-based, so it's a very secure environment. People can only see and do what you've authorized them to do. And so whatever your internal control infrastructure, it's fully enforced throughout the entire application. Because we are a cloud-based application, there's no limit on data, and so you can keep track of every project you ever do on RedTeam. I've got displayed by default my favorite projects, but I can always come in here and filter and find any project I've ever done. I can also memorize these filter settings so I can create essentially queries or reports that I can use for myself or share with the rest of my team. I'm going to navigate into a sample project here called Daily Bugle Renovation. And like I said, I'm not going to go through every aspect of what RedTeam does. I am going to touch on some key functionality though. So back when I was building my construction company in the mid-90s, one of the challenges I had was keeping track of all of the interactions with my customers that has such a huge impact on the success of every project. As a contractor, I say there's three things you absolutely have to get right to be successful in this industry. Number one, you need to know how to build. Number two, you need to manage your contracts. And number three, you need to control the money. And so we can't necessarily help you on the knowing how to build part, but definitely, RedTeam is designed as your primary platform for managing your contracts and controlling your money. One of the key elements of managing your contracts, of course, is the relationship you have with your customer. And so this is one of my favorite tabs in the application. It's called the Contract tab. And this is where you maintain every aspect of your contract commitment to your client. So in this example, I've got an initial contract value, a fixed price contract, 120 days, $1.161 million in value. I can see by the status that this job is in progress. I have a place to store contract documents. So this would be any document that you would normally keep in the prime contract file is maintained right here. There's no limit on the number of documents you can enter here. Underneath this original contract record, I have what we call authorized customer changes. And these are change orders that have already been executed between you and your customer. We have two types of change orders listed here. You notice some of these have a little plus next to it. What that indicates is that this is a composite change. So this is a standard change order document comprised of two change events. However, in RedTeam, it's possible to promote a change event to be a standalone change order. If I look at the change order document itself, in RedTeam, we do create all of the contract-related documents you need to execute your work. So I've opened this up, and this is a standard AIA-style change order. This is displayed in the collaborative console that Fred described during his PowerPoint session. What's nice about the collaborative console is that it keeps, with the document itself, all of the back and forth communication between you and the counterparty. It also keeps track of all the commentary from any other collaborators that might be involved in that document. The goal here, of course, is to eliminate email as much as possible and to permanently store this dialogue thread with this document. So between these two things plus metadata, we have a very robust record for this particular contract document. And these notes essentially become my negotiation memorandum for the document. These are things that contractors normally do, on hard copy. We've emulated some of that process so that it can be done online. And the result, I think, is really a very powerful project record. So I'm going to go back into my contract tab. As you can see, I've got a number of executed change orders and executed change events. My current contract in this example is 184 days and $1.448 million in total contract value. Underneath here, I've got a number of what we call potential changes. And potential changes are any change order that's in the process of being negotiated. Change orders are not, in and of themselves, they are not particularly complicated. It's a pretty easy, basic concept. The challenge with change order management is that you're never typically doing one change order at a time. It's very common to have multiple changes in various states in their respective life cycles, and that's what creates the challenge. And so one of the things that we've done with RedTeam is we've created a system that makes it easy to manage that change order process over the life of the project. So it's common to have multiple change orders, as I said, in the process of being negotiated and reviewed. Because we actually create all of the contract documents, that process is very compact in RedTeam. And so we make it easy to essentially go in and out of a change order over time and pick up where you left off. It's very helpful for project teams to be able to do that. So I've negotiated into this change order editor, and I see I've got a 6-step process. Obviously, not all changes are the same. Some change orders can be very simple. It could be something that you've essentially agreed to on the job site. If you've got an agreement with your client, say it's a $1,000 change, you've done a handshake deal, it's very easy to skip steps 2 through 5 and go straight to step 6 and drop in a dollar amount, and in a minute or two, you can have a change order sent off electronically to your customer. However, you could be a design build firm and you could be developing a $10 or $20 million GMP. And so at the same time, while it's important to support a very quick change order, we have to have the capability to manage a very sophisticated change that involves a complete cost estimate, bid solicitation, pricing, and proposal. And so RedTeam handles both of those types of change orders. So we'll kind of look at that process. So the step 2 in the change order process is to identify the vendors that are impacted by the change. So we'll bring up a list of your current vendors, and of course you can always add additional vendors if you're obtaining work from somebody new on the project. Plans and specs is where you would load any revised documents you've obtained from the owner or the design team. You simply upload those into RedTeam, identify which documents they are going to supersede, and RedTeam gives you the ability to essentially send out this list of documents to the affected vendors so that they can then price up the cost and time impact and submit their pricing back to you. When you request and forward these plans and specs to your vendors, it's a document that looks very similar to this. It's going to have a link to the revised drawing and also a link to the plan room where your vendors could actually get any of the current set of plans and specifications. So this again is displayed in that same collaborative console that we looked at before. As your pricing comes in, it's easy to either enter the price directly or allow your vendors to submit their pricing electronically through the application. As your quotes come in, we're going to line them up side by side. To the extent maybe one of your bidders unselected something from the bid form, we'll actually take your internal cost estimate, insert it so that we can level the bid so that you can make the best value decision for your project. When you select a quote as best, it's automatically going to update our cost estimate. And so this is our live cost estimate for this particular project. You can see the quote I selected for UC painting. I've got that quote price in here. Because this is a change order, this change order will automatically inherit from the prime contract all of the rates and factors that were negotiated for this changed work. So the rates, factors, and unit prices include things like markups for payment and performance bond, general liability insurance, whatever it is that was negotiated on the prime contract as a markup or an overhead will automatically be inserted for pricing up your change. And for those of you who are relying on spreadsheets, you know that this isn't particularly complicated on a one-off basis, but as an enterprise, managing this process can be pretty challenging. I know one of my frustrations as a general contractor would be having project teams that would miss items or miss markups and essentially leave money on the table because they've forgotten to apply a particular rate that was already negotiated on the contract. So this, as you can imagine, is an iterative process. As we obtain more pricing from our subcontractors, we can drop in pricing to replace our internal cost estimates and ultimately arrive at a total price for this particular change. I'm going to jump into step 6 here. And as I mentioned before, RedTeam generates all of your contract documents. So we can pick and choose, what we want to include in our particular proposal. I'm going to include the summary of the unit prices. I'm going to save this and then view my proposal. So at this point, I can look at a draft version of the proposal. I could simply email it to my client to give them a heads up. This way we can start collaborating back and forth in the collaborative console, and we can review the overall terms and conditions of the change. In this case, I've got an attachment with the revised plans, the vendors I've selected, the unit prices I've agreed to on the prime contract, and a complete detailed pricing breakdown that supports my total change order price. We are integrated with DocuSign, so if you have a DocuSign account, you could actually send this document once it's committed via DocuSign, and the committed document will be inserted back into RedTeam. So it's a very clean workflow, seamless workflow for managing change orders. The composite changes are brought about by simply grouping a number of change proposals into a single change order document. It's a very common workflow. You meet with a client, you may be reviewing 5 or 6 different change orders. By the end of the meeting, if you come to an agreement on 2 or 3 of those, it's very easy to group those into a single change order document and send it from RedTeam for signature. So that's the prime contract management side. I want to just touch on now on the other side of the contractual relationships, which is what we call buyout. And on buyout is where you will issue contracts for everything you need to purchase and procure to execute your projects. Buyout is based on templates. So within RedTeam, you have the ability to create any and every form of agreement you need to run your business. These could include, of course, basic purchase orders, maybe standard trade subcontract agreements, but also you can form different types of agreements, things for example, rented equipment or design services. Whatever form of agreement you need, you can format in RedTeam so that your project teams can simply come in here, select the template, and create a contract in a very expedient way. I'm going to open up a sample here. Very similar to the proposal process. We open up the document. It's in that same collaborative console. These terms and conditions, of course, would be adapted from your existing agreements. And this is a document that is ready for signature. So you could either have it hard signed from a hard copy created from this console, or this could also be sent via DocuSign. Once signed via DocuSign, the executed agreement will be automatically inserted back into RedTeam. So now that you're letting your contracts, you're issuing your purchase orders, your vendors are likely to commence work and start submitting their bills to you. So that process is also managed in RedTeam. That entire workflow, that approval workflow, is built into the project management interface. As I look at an invoice submitted by a vendor, we're going to capture some basic information from the invoice. The invoice number, the date of the invoice, the date that your vendor expects it to be paid. We're going to then allocate the dollars we believe was properly performed by that vendor against the vendor's schedule of values. RedTeam will calculate the retainage from the original subcontract or original commitment. We will verify that the vendor's credentials are in force. And as I can see, I've got a couple items that are not provided. be very easy for me to waive. Click the waive button. This is a limited permission. I see this because I'm logged in as an admin, but typically your project team approvers are not going to be able to waive the requirements of the contract. So again, this is completely a real-time process. The next step is to validate the lien waivers I have on file. This includes not only my vendors, but any sub-tier claimants behind them. You can see this link here. This is a link to LevelSet, formerly known as ZLien. This is also an integration that we support. This enables us to request a lien waiver right from RedTeam. That lien waiver is actually transmitted to the claimant by LevelSet. It gives them the opportunity to execute the waiver online. Once they execute the waiver, it'll automatically insert that lien waiver into RedTeam. So finally, I get to my approval process. I can rate the performance of my vendor. I can enter approval notes as required, and I can click approve. RedTeam will have your company's approval matrix built in. That's part of the initial configuration. And so that depending upon my approval authority, this document then may route to somebody for a higher level approval, or maybe it's going to go based on my authority directly to accounting for payment. On confirmation, it gives me a nice summary report we call a disbursement authorization. And this is a very concise recap of everything I've just done in the approval process. It's going to have the entire approval history, the status of my compliance with my credential requirements, history of my prior invoices that I've authorized, and the status of all the lien waivers and the sub-tier claimants. And this is the entry into the accounting system. With our integration with your accounting system, all this information will automatically be entered into the accounting system. The goal on the integration is to eliminate 100% all of the project-related data entry into accounting. And so at this point, RedTeam will check the accounting system and verify that the customer and the project exist. If not, it'll create the customer, create the project, it'll create the vendor, it'll insert the cost code if necessary, and it'll insert the transaction with the appropriate amount held in retainage payable. So it's a very clean, continuous process. If for any reason that transaction needs to be updated, if I have the appropriate authority in RedTeam, I could uncommit the transaction, which will book a reversing entry in the accounting system. I can correct the entry on the RedTeam side and then repost the correct entry into accounting. And so that's the what we call buyout. So that's the procurement side of your contractual relationship. So we talked about the customer side, we talked about the vendor side, and now let's talk about budget. So obviously, everything we're doing on the contract tab and everything we're doing on the buyout tab has a financial implication, and so all of that is managed in a very seamless way. As contracts are put into progress, we will automatically create a budget for you on this budget tab, and this budget will be set equal to the original cost estimate. However, if I have permission to do so, I can actually override the budget, which is not uncommon. You know, a day or two after you win a new project, your executive team may review the budget before it's handed over to operations for construction. We talked about the issuing commitments on the buyout tab. As those commitments are let, they'll automatically show up as open commitments on the buyout tab. This is a click and drill down, so I can look and see what commitments gave rise to the balance on the open commitments. We also looked at the invoice approval process, and as invoices are approved for payment, they'll automatically show up as actual expenditures. And again, I can click and drill down and look into exactly the transactions that support that balance. I have two additional columns on here called at risk and contingency. At risk represents everything that I haven't yet procured to finish the project, and contingency represents dollars I hope I don't have to spend. This is something that I can click and assess periodically, and I can enter my subjective estimates as a project manager or a project executive as to what remains to be spent to finish the work. When I add these 4 columns together, it gives me my estimated cost at complete by cost code. And these cost codes, of course, would be your cost codes, and so that's part of the initial configuration process. When I scroll to the bottom of the list here, it gives me my estimated cost at complete for the entire project. In this example, $1.355 million. Fred briefly touched on the financial overview. The important thing to note here is that this financial overview is real time, and we are calculating revenue on a real-time basis. And so this over-under billing calculation, this measurement of working capital is entirely real-time. And so here's my estimated cost at complete, here's my estimated profit at complete, here's my contract value at complete, and then here's my revenue calculation based on the fact that I'm 34% complete on a cost over estimated cost at complete basis. So back into RedTeam, the key functionality that we provide is scheduling. So we do have a built-in Gantt schedule for those of you who have various copies of Microsoft Project, maybe P6. This is a great alternative because RedTeam manages the access to the schedule based on the permissions for the project team. So it's a very controlled environment. From the schedule, you can publish periodic schedule updates to your plan room. So it's a very expedient process. And we also have something called Dialogue. Dialogue is where we manage all of the contract-related, project-related correspondence. This would include letters and RFIs to the extent that this is very similar to Buyout in that it's also created from templates. And so as you create standard templates for your team, they'll be able to select a standard template and very quickly generate an RFI or a letter. The key benefit of generating all that correspondence from RedTeam, of course, is that we'll automatically track things like RFIs and RFI responses do. And then those letters will be displayed in that same collaborative console that we saw before. Very quickly on submittals, we handle the entire submittal process. If you use an application that can generate submittal lists from plans and specs, we can upload that directly into RedTeam, or we can upload from a spreadsheet. So there's a number of ways to populate the initial submittal requirements. When this tab opens, it opens in what we call the workflow view. And the workflow is essentially tracks all of the documents over their complete life cycle. So if I open up these different discrete states in the life cycle of each of these documents, very similar to other aspects of RedTeam, we're going to create things like a request for submittals. Request for submittals is a document that ultimately will be sent to your vendors and allow your vendors to upload their submittals directly. As those submittals come in, you have the ability to then send those for approval to your client. So you can format a messaging, and ultimately your design team, your owners, can approve that document online. We also generate a complete submittals log. This is entirely driven by metadata, so there's no manual entry of dates or statuses into this document. It simply updates from the workflows that are being managed inside the application. And last, I'm going to look at billing very quickly. We do generate standard AIA-style progress billing. We also support cost-plus billing if that's the type of relationship that you have with your clients. And again, this is displayed in the same collaborative console. This can be shared via email as a draft. Once committed, you can then submit this to your customer electronically. So that was a very quick look across the application. Obviously, there are a lot of things that I didn't cover in this very fast overview. We do have, beyond the functionality of the application itself, we do support connections to a number of popular applications, things like PlanGrid, Autodesk BIM 360, DocuSign, of course, which I mentioned, T-Sheets, and we're about to roll out a new subcontract management application. This is actually a RedTeam product called Team Player, which will enable your subcontractors to have amazing access to project documents you create in RedTeam right on the job site, right on their mobile devices. From a support standpoint, we offer what we call a help center. The help center has a complete online video curriculum for training your team members. This is really great as you bring on new employees. We do partition this by role so that as you bring on new people, you can focus them on learning parts of the application that are most applicable to their job responsibilities. We also offer periodic webinars, which are available live and on demand. We also have what we call a wiki for those of you who like to read your instructions. We have a written instructions for how to use the application. And of course, we have the live support options, which include things like help me tickets, call me tickets. And these are all in addition to our live support in the chat, live chat. So that's a very quick overview of the application and the support.
And then at this point, what would be great would be to open it up for questions that you guys may have about the product.